Hello, Gannon, alcoholic addict. This is my first YouTube video. This will be centered around recovery. I've watched these videos before, and I think you're supposed to say subscribe or hit like, but that's not what this is about. I recently just got out of a 30-day facility, treatment center. 18 days ago, so I'm 48 days sober. And I'm looking back on the time that I had leading up to going to treatment, starting in last December. My drug usage, just skyrocketed. I've always been a drinker, but for some reason, once my drug usage went up, my drinking went down. So I traded one evil for a greater evil. But I look back on just this last 8 months or so, and 9 months, and just seeing in June I got arrested. And on that arrestment I got 5 felonies. July I got arrested again for a DUI, which I just went to court today over that. And then by August, I find myself in jail. And when I got to jail, I'd gotten to the point where I didn't care anymore. I was facing 3 years, and being a guy who really hadn't been in jail or anything like that, I got so sick of myself that I didn't care. I was going to do those 3 years. I was fine with it. I didn't want to call anyone for help. I didn't want anyone to help me. I didn't even want to save me. I was done. I was done with myself, and didn't want anyone to help me. Didn't want to owe anyone to help me. I literally was in jail for 3 days. Didn't call a person. Not one person. And the crazy thing is, I started getting messages from the front desk of the jail, post-it notes of people calling looking for me, wanting to know what they could do for me, wanting to know how they could help me. And finally I just started calling back, and we began the process of trying to get things straight. And I was able to get a diversion set up where, if I continue to do the right thing, that I will I'll have everything expunged. Like it didn't even happen. But it did happen. It always will have happened. And I look back on, you hear the term. I've done a lot of thinking about it. Like I said, during the 30 days that I was in treatment, that I did, and I actually wasn't sent to treatment. I volunteered to go to treatment. And believe me, I was excited to get there. Now, don't get me wrong, though. I showed up messed up. I showed up fucked up. I was fucked up. I needed every one of those 30 days. I mean, every one of those 30 days. The ups and downs that you go through in treatment, and the amount of looking at yourself and the emotions, and how you handle the emotions, and how you handle your expectations of people, and your codependency, and all those different things, and your handling of your behavior, and the situations that you run into, and the situation creates a thought, which has an emotion, and then the emotion creates behavior. And those things, really working on that was really one of the big things, that helped me get through to the point where I could finally have that release, which I wouldn't believed that I would have had that release when I first got there. And finally, about 4 days away from me getting out, I finally started to have that release, where I just basically started to let all the anger go, all the disappointment, all the expectations that were unrealistic, putting unrealistic expectation on so many different people. And for some reason, I was always able to do things properly, professionally, when dealing with people, but I was not quite as good at handling it when it came to do with my personal relationship with people. I had expectations that were unrealistic, and if those expectations were let down, then that would create a situation where, which would be result into, let down, a hit against my self-esteem, my ego. My self-esteem was really a big problem. And it still is. It still is an issue. It still is an issue that I have to deal with. And know that when my ego starts to take over to make me to where I'm putting unrealistic expectations of people, I have to catch it. But luckily, I'm at a point where I can see it and catch it. As a matter of fact, I had a little trouble with it yesterday. And when I felt those emotions, coming, it didn't make me want to use. It actually did the opposite. It made me glad I wasn't drinking or using, because how those emotions would have actually spun me out of control worse, or spun me into just another spiral. I went in there with the point that I'd probably hit my bottom. I hit the two things. The funny thing is, the two things that kept me from going to treatment: my family and work. And the two things that kept me from going to treatment were the first two things that I was about to lose. Those are the first two things that were about to go. The things that I thought that I was sticking around to save were the things that I was actually ruining the most. And, there was a time back in my usage where, in my drinking, that I probably, if I would have gone and stuck with AA, because I did try AA before and different things, and I had some success with it. Well, I wouldn't say success. I had some good results. I had good times where I wasn't drinking or using. But I think for me, there's like a line that you cross, and you cross that line where your mind and your approach to life changes, and it gets so warped because you're living in like this madness that you now no longer, or at least for me, no longer had the ability to just go to meetings. I had to get a reset. I had to basically retrain my brain and basically retrain my approach to life to where I could then start to see how my previous behavior was such a problem and my previous approach was such a problem, where I don't think I crossed that line where I wouldn't have saw that. And I really needed that treatment. I went to court today. Here's a crazy thing. I went to court today dealing with the DUI, and I'd been to this courthouse before, but I was messed up when I went, and while going there, I recognized nothing. I mean, nothing looked familiar. The only thing that looked familiar was the courthouse, but all the landscape and all the landmarks leading up to the courthouse looked completely unfamiliar. I started questioning if I was even in the right area, because none of it looked familiar. And I started realizing, good God, you must have been fucked up. Damn. How did they let you leave that day? But I guess I was able to put on a good enough mask, because that's what it was. It was a big mask that I put on. And of course, I'm driving now while YouTubing, but I guess I can get a DUI. Driving under YouTube. But and I look back at how breaking the law and stuff like that, breaking promises and breaking commitments and breaking, really, if you think about it, you're not breaking the law. The law is not broken. The law still exists. You're not breaking the commitment. The commitment still existed. You're not breaking the promise. You're breaking yourself against it. You're breaking who you are against your commitment to honor these things. And that's what it was. I'm basically breaking myself down and breaking myself down until basically there was just only some small pieces left. And when I look back on my attempts to stay sober, one time I stayed sober for 10 months, but that was just because I was pissed off. I was just pissed off, like, damn it, I'll show you. I was able to white knuckle it and do it for 10 months. And then I look back on other times where I'd have a 30-day here, or 25-day here, or 40 days here, there. And all those times failed as well, obviously. But the biggest thing that I realized of why I failed. Because when I look at the 12 steps, I actually was in work in life. I did a decent job of working the steps, except for 1, 2, and 3. I never got 1, 2, and 3. Never could admit I was powerless. Didn't put my faith in my God, my high power, and I didn't let Him. You know, during treatment, a friend of mine said to me, 1, 2, and 3 is kind of like this. He said, I can't, He can, I'll let Him. And that really stuck with me. It made a lot of sense to me. You know, I can't, He can, I'll let Him. And that's basically what I'm doing. I know I can't. I know I'm powerless. And like I said, I crossed that line. I crossed that line to where, you know, if I go back to try to use or do anything like that again, I won't go back to being the guy I was 10, 12 years ago. I'll go back to being the guy I was 48 days ago. I'm 48 days sober now. And so I'm still early in my recovery process. And I got a little drive ahead of me, so I figured I've done a meeting, and I called a friend of mine who's also who's a sponsor in the AA, and we had some conversation. I still got more drive left, so I figured I'd take this time to talk about it and record it and see if there's any response, or maybe if there's any type of things that I can offer that would help anybody else. But you know, I was going back to using, and if I use again, I'll go right back to where I was. There's no, and basically that was every day. Every day I had to have drugs, alcohol. Well, like I said, alcohol kind of tapered off. It was mostly pills. And, it was started off. It was alcohol for the longest time, and then it was alcohol and cocaine, and then remained alcohol and cocaine for a very long time. And then it became pills and cocaine. And for some reason, I always keep my vices, my main 2 vices. You know, I'm not one off, so I have 2 main vices for some reason. And then it became pills and methamphetamine. Now that doesn't say that I didn't use anything that was around, if it was around, especially if the other stuff wasn't available. It didn't matter what it was, I'd use it. And I was having, obviously, going through situations where, you know, you're going to run into problems in life, no matter what. But running into problems while drinking, using drugs, is just 10 times worse. 10 times worse, because one, you have no ability left to fix the problem. So all you're doing is blocking. That's all I was doing. I just blocked what was going on, blocked what I had to deal with, so I could find some sort of comfort in not dealing with the issue. And that's exactly what I was doing. And I'm so thankful to have the ability to be able to look at that and be honest about it. Even do one of these things. This is something I haven't done before, but this is just something that I feel so strongly about and sharing, that, you know, it's just my way of doing additional things and just try and make myself to where I just am completely honest and surrender to the truth and vulnerable to whatever comes to that. But, you know, there's plenty of times where people had reason to be mad or angry at me or dislike whatever it was I was doing or have an issue I was doing when I was drinking and using drugs. You know, now if anybody has an issue with me because I'm being honest, then it doesn't matter to me anyways. Who cares? But it feels good to have this release and to have this, to be in this place where I can continue to approach life with a level head, with a clear mind, and know that sometimes things won't be okay all the time. But that's okay. That's all right. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not meant to be perfect every time, or it may not even be meant to be perfect at all, and that's okay too. But at least I can approach it with the best of me. As you know, I realized, I started thinking in rehab or treatment, you know, how much of me is really left, how much who is the real me anymore, you know? And how much of the real me is left? But I'd be keen to release on that too, because I don't know, but I do know what's left in me is the best of me. So I'm happy about that. And maybe I won't be my best every single day, but that's okay. And that's good enough. But thank you for letting me share. You have a great day.